What's up, everybody? Steve here. I did another video, another live stream, actually, and I'll link it for you guys as well. And that was pertaining to another housing cheerleader. That was the Coldwell Banker CEO, Ryan Gorman, just putting a lot of FOMO in the real estate market, just talking about how everybody needs to rush out and go buy a house. It's extremely important. Now, I came across another video today, and this was Fox Business, and they were asking some more difficult questions. And this was pertaining to the CEO of Century 21, Mike Miedler. And I'm going to go through that article and talk a little bit about it as well. But basically, in the other video that I did with the Coldwell Banker CEO, Ryan Gorman, is I just talked about how the real estate industry is a trickle up effect. You have, your home buyer, you have your home seller. Good morning. You got your real estate agent. So the real estate agent assists a home buyer or home seller. They get a commission. That commission, part of it is going to go to their brokerage, which is in many cases a franchisee. So Coldwell Banker, Century 21, they're a franchisor. They sell independent franchisees. And then that franchisee has to pay sometimes monthly per agent or a split or a fee per transaction that goes to the top. So it's a trickle up effect. Now, these housing cheerleaders are coming out in droves and just talking about really how substantially high the demand is for housing, and there's no housing bubble in the future. And and this is why I'm doing these videos, because I want to give a different perspective on things, because I think it's very important that we are not just looking at one source or one media for your information, especially if you guys are contemplating on buying a house right now. So this video, I have it in the link for you guys as well, so you guys can watch it and formulate your own opinion on it. But it was Fox Business. And the CEO of Century 21, hang on here, Mike Miedler. So she asked, do you see any cooling off? And immediately he's like a politician. He dodged the answer immediately and basically goes on to say, good news is demand is high for people with a lot of savings. Now, I don't know if you guys have been following the stock market and everything that's going on, and also first quarter GDP going down 1.4% as our entire economy is contracting. Even if you have savings, I think people are looking at their savings account like, wow, you know what? The cost of food, the cost of fuel, the cost of everything is more expensive right now. We might need those savings for a rainy day. So this guy's basically saying people have a ton of money in savings. They have good down payments, and they should be out buying real estate right now. And it, quote unquote, he said a lot of people have savings for their dream of home ownership. Now, I'm a real estate broker here in Florida, and I'm all about real estate. I'm all about creating wealth in real estate. And I think that, buying real estate at the height of the market, in my opinion, I think we're at the height of the market, I think is not necessarily a good idea unless it's your home and you're going to be there for a long period of time. So these talking heads, they're coming out and they're just saying, you know what, FOMO, there's huge demand, get out there and buy a property. Goes on to say, even with rise in rates, people are very active in the market. Again, he's just pushing this narrative that there's, and again, I always preface this with real estate is micro econ, where everybody's markets are different. And I'm sure we're going to get some comments on this video saying, in my market right now, there are multiple offers, this and that. But I can tell you, I'm in Southwest Florida. We are historically in a cyclical market. And I'm already, every day I get emails on certain drip campaigns that come to me. And right now, I can tell you, out of the 3 drips that came out, there were probably 40 to 50 properties. Out of the 40 to 50, I'd say at least half had price reductions. A handful were back on market, and the rest were new listings that came to market. So, 6 months ago, that wasn't even a thing. That wasn't even a reality. So just seeing and homes are staying on market longer. Just seeing, in our microeconomics here and the areas that I'm looking at in Southwest Florida, it is starting to shift. And we're not getting as many, offers on one specific property. And, maybe it's starting to turn into a buyer's market, especially with interest rates going up. Now, real quick, too, if you guys just put yes or no in the comments, if you don't mind, do you guys think we are in a housing bubble? Put yes if you do, or no if you do not think. I'm curious as to what your responses will be on that. So she went on to ask, what are your expectations for the spring home buying season? And he says we are no more, basically not in a cyclical market like 2006, 7, 8. And then goes on to say that 90 million millennials and 60 million Gen Zs, quote unquote, are storming the market. And, again, if you wanted to put emotion in front of everything, put these talking heads out there, put these real estate cheerleaders out there, and get them to go ahead and buy real estate by these kind of messages. Then another guy came into the interview, and he was trying to be more stern in terms of asking some solid questions, and it looked like he was trying to get to the truth, but it's very difficult to get to the truth with certain political figures or CEOs, basically the politicians, in my opinion. He asked, how are higher rising rates affecting homes currently under contract? And then he kind of dodged the question. Then he said, it will hurt first-time home buyers, but haven't seen it right now. Okay, let's take a step back for a second. I'm seeing it in this market. I'm seeing first-time home buyers that were shopping, and they we're running numbers based on a 3%, 3.5%, maybe even 4% interest rate not too long ago. And then finally, when they were able to secure a property, the interest rates are just pricing them out. So they're backing out of contracts. And we're going to see more and more of that. But for this guy to say we're not seeing that right now, I think it is just a bunch of bullshit. Now to kind of defend him in a sense, the properties are coming back to market. If they're priced right, they're getting gobbled up by the next person in line. So there's still demand for housing. There's no doubt about it. But for this guy to say we're not seeing it right now, I think is just a bunch of BS. And then I forget her name, that she was actually the interviewer from Fox Business. They put a clip of her interviewing the CEO of Cochrane Group, Pamela Lieben. And she was saying, basically comparing the 2006 market with today's market. And yes, it's a completely different real estate market, but she said that we are so undersupplied across the country that I do not believe one iota that we're in a housing bubble. Okay. So again, she's saying we are so undersupplied in the housing market that I don't believe we're in one iota of a housing bubble. Now, I don't know what you guys think. I can see some of the comments here in terms of whether we're in a housing bubble or not. I see Sean is saying in terms of no and not in Cape Coral. Cape Coral actually is one of the, I think it made the top 6 of metros for huge amounts of building going on. So the last real estate crash, I mean, there was a lot of homes in Cape Coral as well as Lehigh Acres that were built. And then, I had investors that are buying the same homes that were selling for $250 and we were selling them for $50,000. So, time is going to tell, but what none of these talking heads, none of these cheerleaders are talking about has been the artificially restricted inventory to come to market. We still have, a lot of foreclosures on the sidelines that should be hitting the market, and the foreclosures they're starting to be processed again, and we haven't even begun to feel that. And we basically for 2.5 years completely stopped that process. And unfortunately, even if people that were going through the foreclosure process before the pandemic, a lot of them have already, wiped their hands clean and walked away from these houses. So they've already been under the bank's possession in a sense. So you see what happens with foreclosures is they send out people to these properties and they have to protect their assets. So if a property is vacant, they go in and they'll change the locks. They're going to insure the property. They're going to cut the grass. They're going to have weekly or biweekly inspections on these properties. Excuse me. And when you guys go and actually look at these properties for sale, because we're going to see more foreclosures come to market. I was actually just in one the other day. It was beaten to shit. But basically, when you go into these foreclosure properties, you're going to see in most cases, usually in the front door or in the kitchen or even in the garage, there's going to be a sheet and it's going to be dated and who entered the property and sometimes some notes on it. Look at those dates, pay attention to those dates and when they actually took possession and started to basically maintain that property. And I bet you're going to see a lot of them pre-pandemic. So those properties, I think we're sitting on the sidelines in many cases. And then obviously people that were going through the foreclosure process, they completely stopped of foreclosure proceedings. So we're going to see more and more of that inventory come to market. We're seeing a ton of home building here in Southwest Florida. I'm still seeing big tracts of land being leveled and they're going vertical. But, time is going to tell with, the Fed just increased another half point. And they're talking about 5 to 6 more increases this year. That will have an effect on everybody's short-term interest rates, whether it's credit card debt or whatever the case is. And, I'm just taking a step back and using kind of common sense, but there's a lot of turmoil in the market. And, a lot of these guys, they're running on, how solid the job market is and just talking about jobs and how many jobs are out there. But I think that we're going to see more and more companies go out of business, more and more layoffs, and that job market, all those openings, I think is going to shrink, and it's going to shrink pretty quickly. And then obviously the cost of living, everybody is getting squeezed right now. And, biggest reason for this is, for this live stream anyway, which I wasn't even intending on doing today until I saw this video. It just pissed me off is, people need to make more educated decisions and not on any kind of emotions, because when you start utilizing your emotions especially to take on high amounts of debt that you will have to pay back, I think it's extremely important that people understand the ramifications as well, because even if people that bought, let's say a year ago and they locked in a really good interest rate, but they took on, $400,000 or $500,000 worth of debt, that debt's got to be paid back. And if our market does go down in value, and I think it is going to go down in value, and you have to sell, then you might be upside down after closing costs and everything else. And I've seen in some of the comments here too, where, I did a video that came out, I think last night, and, you have people commenting saying, yeah, I'm stuck. I can't sell. The equity position that I thought I had, I really don't have, because people are not, they get on Zillow and they're like, damn, my house is now worth, $400,000. And they paid, say, $350,000. They're like, I got $50,000 of equity. But when you look at closing costs, and if you have a taxable event as well, based on any profit, but if you look at just closing costs alone, that significantly eats away at that equity position that you had. And I think people are realizing that too, especially if people are trying to sell and move up or even move down. I think home sellers are going to get stuck based on that. See if I got any questions here in the live stream. If you have any questions, drop them here. I see a lot of, are we in the housing bubble? Yes, no, yes, no. would you say a single family home is more of a liability than an asset? When interest rates were extremely low, that debt was actually an asset, especially if that was a rental property. Um, I look at debt where I live, which I don't have debt where I live, but I look at debt where I live, it's still a liability. It doesn't matter unless you're house hacking, unless you have somebody renting out a room, or they're renting out a basement, and they're renting out a guest quarter or guest house. That debt is taking money out of your pocket. Anytime anything's taking money out of your pocket, it's a liability, no matter how you twist it. And you could say, appreciation, everything else. Yeah, I mean, that's speculation, but but cheap debt on a rental property is definitely an asset. Um, it's amazing how only a few weeks the news is already talking about a bubble and price drops. Springfield '03 sniper. I agree. I mean, we're starting. Even the chief economist from National Association of Realtors, he's another talking head. And finally, after I read an article today, but basically, 70% of what he was saying was still like, oh, the housing market's still good, but we might see some turmoil. We might see a decline in housing. And finally, some of these talking heads are actually getting to the truth, unlike the CEO of Century 21, Mike Miedler. Where are we at? Mr. Kilroy, the FOMO cheerleaders will soon be crying because they will not be invited to the prom. I like that. Valiant, I enjoy your content. I'm an agent, but why does it seem like all your videos are so negative? I'm just giving a different perspective. Was it Valiant Brossard? No, I mean, we're still working with buyers who have to buy. They have to buy because maybe they're moving to Florida. They need a home. They'd rather do that than rent. I get it. I'm just saying, look, if you're buying real estate right now, you have to be unemotional and you have to look at it like a business decision. And I'm not trying to fear monger in any sense. I'm just giving a different perspective on the real estate market as a whole, and what I'm experiencing in our local market as well. But look, if I went through the last real estate recession, and I dealt with, we listed and sold hundreds and hundreds of short sale properties, and not all of them, like a lot of people are like, oh, predatory lending, this and that. Not all of them were like that. You have to understand, there's plenty of people that bought homes with good down payments, 30-year fixed interest, or even fully amortized 15 years. And they were still losing their homes because they had job losses and they had to move out of area. Another sector, a huge sector of Florida that moved out of Southwest Florida, was anybody in the trades, in construction. So, people that were, let's say they had a tile business, and, construction just completely stopped, which I anticipate is probably going to happen. When that happened, that's all they know is laying tile and setting tile. What do they got to do? They either have to figure out picking up a new skill set, they got to get a different job in a different kind of field, or they got to move out and try to figure out where the money is for that trade. So I'm just saying, if you're buying a house right now and the values go down, and you put 5% down on the property, you might be upside down a year from now, 2 years from now. Truth will always be a little salty. I'm hearing Michael August. Can you get a mortgage on a foreclosed property? Yeah, for sure. It also depends. Like, and I'm not, a mortgage broker, mortgage lender, but certain loans like FHA or VA, the property needs to have certain things like it's going to need flooring, it's going to need appliances and so forth. So your best bet is talking to a mortgage broker on that. But yeah, you can definitely get financing for foreclosure property. And also a lot of times the properties that come out for foreclosure, a lot of times they'll have a 7-day period where it's just basically primary use owners have first right of refusal, basically. So sometimes you can have a leg up there. Loss mitigation, FOMO, fear of not getting out. What about purchasing with a VA loan? Any incentives? Yeah, I mean, you can get in with VA with basically no money out of pocket. Again, just buy right. I think a lot of things that I preach on this channel too is live below your means. If you're approved for say, 400,000, can you see if you can buy anything that's suitable for 300,000? Another thing too is, and I'm going to do another video on this on institutional investors. We used to work, and maybe I should regrettably say this, but we used to work with Blackstone. We worked with them for about 8 months. We sold them about 130 properties, mostly in Cape Coral, Florida. And I want to do a video on that and talk about my experience in working with them. And this was several years back as well. But one thing I do want to talk about is, a lot of people are saying institutional investors, they have all this money and this and that. But you got to understand, most of those institutional investors, they take debt, and that debt is usually short-term debt, and it's adjustable debt. So with the Fed keeping increasing rates, that's going to have an effect on their bottom line. So we could see certain institutional investors start to liquidate and sell out or sell off certain funds to pension funds or whatever the case is. Pension funds are a little scary, especially after reading Robert Kiyosaki's book on pension funds. But, anyway, if you guys are in the market for a home and you need to buy a property and you're up against institutional investors, my suggestion is, like, for example, Blackstone, they had a criteria, a very, very specific criteria. It was only single family homes, non-HOA, had to have a 2-car garage, had to be at least a 3-bed, 2-bath, had to be at least, I think, 1350 under air. We were buying pool homes, and then eventually they got out of pool homes. They got out of certain flood zones. So I don't think that there's many institutional investors buying like coach homes or maybe condos. So you guys might want to look at that, where there's going to be less competition as well. If someone just sold their home, would you recommend renting a while and waiting for the house prices to drop in formal crypto? Great question. I've mentioned before, we just closed on this condo. We sold it. We got an excellent price on it. So I'm like, we are out. So we've been looking at rentals. I haven't rented in so long. It's kind of foreign to me, but we, out of the profit on this, I allocated a certain amount of money for an entire year to rent. And that's what we're most likely going to do unless I find a steal. Again, I'm still looking for properties on the market for sale. I'm looking at foreclosures and everything else, but I'm going to hunker down and see what happens, because again, there's a ton of turmoil in the markets, and I mean, just people's retirements are getting wiped out right now. And I think that's going to have an effect on real estate. And, in Florida anyway, we have so many people that came out here and bought second homes. That's a non-essential asset. And I think people are looking at certain properties. And I think, if they're trying to free up capital and everything else, we'll see a lot more second homes and even investment properties come to market. Real estate mindset. What's happening, man? FHA and VA requires the property to be in livable condition, which I think is fair. Real estate mindset, man. You got a great channel, dude. I've been following you for a bit. If you haven't checked out his channel, be sure to check it out. And also the Retirement Mentality, he's on here as well. He's got a great channel. He lives in the islands. He's got a place in Puerto Rico. We did a collaboration video on a house in Puerto Rico, a short-term rental property, which we are looking to come to Puerto Rico this summer, man. So let's talk. Telling the people the truth is being negative. Alex, that's funny. I have such respect for this man. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Collective perspective. I worked with dozens of people who were still working and still gave their homes back to the banks. Yeah, I'm with you there. It was sad times back then. And again, I hate to say it, but it wasn't all the predatory lending. Now, let's talk about lending for a second. Adjustable rate mortgages are up. 40-year mortgages are out there as well. I mean, uh, it, I would say that we're going to come to a time we'll probably see negative amortization loans come back. And if anybody's watching this right now, adjustable rate mortgages, bad news; negative amortization, bad news; 40-year mortgages, bad news. If you can't get into a 15 or 30-year fully amortized loan, you probably can't afford it. So don't do it. And again, why are adjustable rate mortgages so bad? Because everybody's going to say, oh, when 5 years is up or 3 years is up, whatever that term is, and it adjusts, odds are it's going to be way higher. Your payment is going to skyrocket. But at that point in time, what they're saying is just simply sell the property or just simply refinance it. And that is the worst advice I've ever heard. And if you're hearing that advice, then just run away from it, because nobody has a crystal ball what's going to happen, and you don't know what your debt position and where the current real estate values are going to be in 5 years. So be very, very careful about that. Bitcoin, man, the market is going to crash faster than anyone imagines. I refuse to take buyer's commission checks. It's not right to encourage a buyer at this time to buy. If you're just joining too, let me know in the comments if you guys think we are in a housing bubble or not, or are you going to trust the housing cheerleaders? These guys, man, these guys. Any other questions before I jump off? I know everybody is busy today. Let's see here. I think that's it. Happy Friday to everybody. Be safe out there, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you're not a subscriber, I appreciate you subscribing. And if you guys are, and if you know anybody that is trying to buy a house right now and they can't necessarily afford it, and they're looking at an adjustable rate mortgage or whatever, pass this video along to them. I think it's important. And I truly believe, in my opinion, I think we're going to see more deals come to the market, especially with a lot of turmoil and everything going on. I mean, look at the stock market, look at first quarter negative GDP, look at eviction moratoriums being lifted, foreclosure moratoriums being lifted, look at the forbearances coming to an end. By the way, a lot of those forbearances are putting people into 40-year mortgages. And I think that, they're going to be enslaved to the bank for a long, long time. And unfortunately, I see real estate following that track. You can't have the values of real estate keep going up and up and up like we have been, and it's going to continue to go up like it has. I mean, it's just you can take a step back and just look at kind of common sense of housing affordability, and also wages. The growth in wages, I think, are up 6% per year, but inflation just completely wipes that out. So people's wages can't keep up with the cost of living, especially with interest rates, mortgage interest rates rising. People are just not going to be able to afford higher and higher prices. So something's going to give, something's going to break. And I think it is breaking right now. Let me know your thoughts, guys. I appreciate your time today. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'll see you guys on the next video. And check out that video I did with the Coldwell Banker CEO, Ryan Gorman. I talk more in detail of the trickle-up effect. See you guys.